You take your dog to the vet for the first time. At some point in the visit, the vet asks, "Has this dog been microchipped?" If the answer is no, they offer to do it right then. A needle, a second, a small chip between the shoulder blades. You leave thinking, okay, that's done. If something ever happens, at least they'll know this dog belongs to me. That thought is understandable. It's also not quite right. When investigators began processing the property at Miranda's rescue in California, they recovered 91 microchips. 91. Each one traced back to a shelter. Some traced back further, to a family, to a name, to a dog someone had loved and handed over believing it would be safe. Not one of those chips sent a signal when the dog was buried. Not one of them triggered anything. Not one of them told anyone where that dog had ended up. By the end of this video, you'll know 3 things that actually protect your dog after the microchip has done everything it's capable of doing. Nobody tells you those 3 things when you walk out of the vet's office. They should. 1. What a microchip actually does, and where it stops. Most people have a version of a microchip in their head that doesn't match what it actually is. A microchip is a passive RFID transponder. Passive means it has no battery, no power source of its own. It doesn't broadcast anything. It doesn't send a signal. It doesn't connect to anything. It sits there, dormant, waiting. The only time it does anything is when a compatible scanner passes within a few centimeters of it and sends a small pulse of energy that wakes the chip up long enough to transmit a number. One number. That's it. Not a name, not an address, not a photo, not a medical history. A number. Usually 15 digits, that has to be looked up in a separate database to mean anything at all. Someone has to find your dog. That person has to have a scanner. They have to choose to use it. The number has to appear in a database. That database has to have your current information. Every link in that chain has to hold. The ASPCA estimates that roughly 58% of microchipped pets in the US have registration information that is either incomplete, outdated, or entered into a database that isn't connected to the systems most shelters actually search. None of this is the chip's fault. A microchip does exactly what it was designed to do. It identifies a dog that has been found and is being actively scanned. It was never designed to track, never designed to alert, never designed to follow a dog through transfers, through rescues, through the gaps in a system that nobody is required to monitor. The distance between what it does and what most people believe it does, that's the gap worth understanding. 2. 91 chips. Not one of them helped. Go back to those 91 chips. Each one had a number. Each number existed in a database. Some were registered to shelters, Oakland, Humboldt, others, that had transferred those dogs to Miranda's in good faith, over months or years. Some were registered to families who had surrendered a dog believing it would find a better home. The chip couldn't do any of the things that might have mattered. It couldn't tell the shelter the dog had stopped moving. It couldn't tell the family the dog was no longer where they'd left it. It couldn't tell a database administrator that something was wrong. Because no one was scanning. No one was looking. And nothing in the system, not the chip, not the transfer agreement, not the donation receipt, was designed to prompt anyone to check. The shelters that transferred those dogs weren't being negligent. They were operating exactly the way the system expected them to operate. Hand the dog to a rescue partner, record the transfer, move on to the next dog that needs a place to go. Oakland Animal Services transferred 827 dogs to Miranda's rescue over 6 years. In that time, not a single one of those chips generated a flag. Not a single database entry showed a discrepancy. Because the chip records a transfer, it doesn't record what comes after. If you want to know more about how the transfer system works and where the other gaps are, that's the previous video in this series. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. The chip did its job. The job just wasn't big enough for what people were asking it to do. So the question becomes, what fills the rest of the gap? Three things that actually protect your dog. There are 3 things, not instead of a microchip, after it. The parts of the system that most people never build because they think the chip already covers them. The first is registration, and most people have never actually checked theirs. When your dog is chipped, the chip gets a number. That number then needs to be registered in a searchable database. The problem is, there are dozens of databases in the United States, and they don't all talk to each other. The one that matters most, the one that shelters and vets actually search when they scan an unknown dog, is the AAHA Universal Pet Microchip Lookup. You can go there right now. Type in your dog's chip number. See what comes back. If the information is wrong, if it's outdated, if it's registered to a previous owner or a shelter that rehomed the dog 2 years ago, the chip is essentially pointing nowhere. This is the step that takes 3 minutes and gets skipped because most people assume someone else handled it when the chip was placed. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. The only way to know is to check. The second thing is the paper trail, and it matters most when a dog changes hands. Every time a dog moves, from shelter to foster, from rescue to adopter, from one family to another, the chip registration needs to be updated. That update is not automatic. It's not triggered by the transfer. Someone has to go in and do it manually. 91 chips from Miranda's property still pointed back to the shelters and families that had surrendered those dogs. Not to Miranda's. Not to anyone responsible for their care at the time of their deaths. The chip recorded where the dog started, not where it ended. The third thing works in situations where no scanner is ever involved. Clear, current photographs. Not from 2 years ago, not the one from the first week you brought them home. A photo from the last few months, in good light, showing any distinctive markings. A scar, a patch of color, the shape of an ear. A written description of features that don't show up in a photo. The way they move, a limb that turns a certain way. Something that makes your dog identifiable to a stranger. And a network. Nextdoor, local Facebook groups, Petco Love Lost, places where people who find dogs actually go to look. The 2 women who uncovered what was happening at Miranda's rescue didn't use a scanner to find those dogs. They used photographs. They used names. They used descriptions that people had shared in groups and threads and posts that kept asking the same question. Has anyone seen my dog? That's what found them. Not the chip. The people who refused to stop looking. 4. What 91 chips leave behind. 91 chips. Each one doing exactly what it was designed to do. Carrying a number. Waiting to be read. Ready to identify a dog the moment someone chose to look. No one chose to look. That's not a failure of the technology. It's a failure of the assumption. The one that says the chip is the system, when the chip was only ever meant to be one piece of it. We hand our dogs over to vets, to shelters, to rescue networks, to strangers with good credentials and a GoFundMe page. And somewhere in the back of our minds is this quiet comfort. They're chipped. We'll find them if anything goes wrong. None of this means the chip was a mistake. It means the chip needs company. Updated registration that you've personally verified. Current photographs you've taken recently. A network of people in your community who know your dog's face. 3 things. They take maybe an hour to put in place. Most people never do it because the chip makes them feel like it's already done. Microchips identify the dog you love. They don't protect it. That part that part is still yours to do.